What would you do if everything you'd worked for, everyone you loved, and everything you believed about life was suddenly taken away? This is the story of Job, a man who faced the unthinkable and discovered something profound about faith, suffering, and what it means to be human. Long ago, in a land called Uz, there lived a man named Job. Now, when I say Job was wealthy, I mean he was really wealthy. Picture this: 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 oxen, and 500 donkeys. In today's terms, we're talking about a multi-millionaire rancher. But Job's real treasure wasn't his livestock or his sprawling estate. It was his family. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and they were close. The kind of family that got together regularly, celebrated each other's birthdays, and genuinely enjoyed spending time together. Here's what made Job special, though. Despite having everything anyone could want, he was genuinely good. Not just good for a rich guy, but actually righteous. He helped the poor, he was honest in his business dealings, and he took his faith seriously. The ancient text describes him as blameless and upright, someone who feared God and turned away from evil. Every morning, Job would offer sacrifices for his children, just in case they had somehow sinned the night before. He was that kind of father, protective, caring, always thinking about their well-being. Now here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The scene shifts to heaven, where God is holding court with various spiritual beings. Among them is a character known as the Satan, which literally means the accuser or the adversary. Think of this figure as the ultimate skeptic, the prosecutor who questions everyone's motives. Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one on earth like him. He's blameless, upright, fears God, and turns away from evil. Oh, come on. Of course Job worships you. Look at how you've blessed him. You've put a protective hedge around him, his family, and everything he owns. You've blessed the work of his hands. But take away everything he has, and he'll curse you to your face. It's a challenge that cuts to the heart of a fundamental question. Do people love God for who he is, or just for what he gives them? Is Job's faith genuine, or is it just a transaction? God accepts the challenge, but with one crucial limitation. Satan can touch Job's possessions, but not Job himself. What happened next would be any parent's worst nightmare. It was an ordinary day. Job's children were at their oldest brother's house, eating and drinking wine, probably laughing and sharing stories like they always did. Then the messengers started arriving. Master Job, raiders attacked and stole all your oxen and donkeys. They killed all the servants. I'm the only one who escaped. Before Job could even process this news, another messenger burst in. Master, fire fell from the sky and burned up all your sheep and the shepherds. I'm the only one who got away. Then a third messenger, breathless and terrified. Master, 3 raiding parties of Chaldeans swept down on your camels and took them all. They killed everyone. Only I survived. In a matter of minutes, Job's entire business empire, built over decades, was gone. But the worst was yet to come. A fourth messenger arrived, and you could see the devastating news written on his face before he even spoke. Master, your sons and daughters, they were feasting at your oldest son's house when a great wind came from the desert. It struck the house and it collapsed. All of them, all 10 of your children, they're gone. I alone escaped to tell you. Imagine that moment. In one day, Job lost his livelihood, his fortune, and every single one of his children. Everything that made life worth living, gone. How would you react? Rage? Despair? Cursing God? Losing all faith? Here's what Job did. He got up, tore his robe in grief, shaved his head as a sign of mourning, and then he fell to the ground and worshipped. And he said these remarkable words, Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. The ancient text adds this crucial detail. In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. Back in the heavenly court, God points out to Satan, Job still maintains his integrity. You incited me against him to destroy him without cause, but his faith held firm. Satan wasn't convinced. Skin for skin, he argued. A man will give up everything for his life, but strike his flesh and bones and he'll curse you to your face. So God allowed Satan to afflict Job's body with one restriction: spare his life. Job woke up the next morning covered in painful boils from head to toe. These weren't just a few bumps. We're talking about a severe, debilitating skin condition that made him unrecognizable. The pain was so intense that he sat among the ashes outside the city, scraping his skin with a piece of broken pottery, trying to find some relief. His wife, who had also lost everything, their fortune, their 10 children, and now, watching her husband suffer, reached her breaking point. "Why are you still holding on to your integrity?" she asked him. "Just curse God and die." But Job replied, "You're talking like a foolish woman. Should we accept good from God and not trouble?" Even in his darkest hour, Job refused to blame God for his suffering. Word spread about Job's disasters, and 3 of his oldest friends heard about what had happened. These weren't casual acquaintances. These were lifelong friends who traveled from distant places to comfort him. When they saw Job from a distance, they barely recognized him. The successful, healthy man they knew was gone. They wept aloud, tore their clothes, and threw dust in the air in grief. Then they did something beautiful. They sat with him in silence for 7 days and 7 nights, because they could see his suffering was too great for words. But when they finally spoke, their comfort turned into something else entirely. You see, these friends operated under a simple theological formula. Good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. So if Job was suffering this much, he must have done something terrible to deserve it. Eliphaz spoke first. "Job, think about it. Have you ever seen an innocent person perish? Those who sow trouble reap it. God doesn't reject the blameless. You must have sinned somehow." Bildad chimed in. "Your children must have sinned, and God punished them. If you were pure and upright, surely God would restore you." Zophar was even more direct. "You're getting less punishment than you deserve. Your guilt is obvious." For chapters and chapters, this goes on. Job's friends are convinced they're helping, but they're actually making things worse. They're trying to solve the mystery of Job's suffering by blaming Job himself. Job pushes back against their simplistic explanations. He knows he's not perfect, but he also knows he hasn't done anything to deserve this level of suffering. "I've seen wicked people prosper and good people suffer," he argues. "Your neat little formulas don't match reality." Job begins to wrestle with bigger questions. Where is God in all this? Why do bad things happen to good people? If God is just, why does injustice seem to flourish? Job's words become increasingly desperate. "Oh, that I knew where I might find God, that I might come to his dwelling. I would lay my case before him. I would know what he would answer me." He's not losing faith, he's demanding answers. He wants his day in court with God. After Job and his 3 friends exhaust themselves in debate, a young man named Elihu speaks up. He's been listening quietly and he's frustrated with everyone. "You 3 friends have failed to answer Job properly," he says. "And Job, you've been trying to justify yourself rather than God. But here's what you're all missing. God is greater than any human being. He doesn't owe us explanations for everything he does." Elihu suggests that sometimes suffering isn't punishment. Sometimes it's education. Sometimes God uses pain to teach us something we couldn't learn any other way. Then, something extraordinary happens. God himself speaks to Job, not in a whisper, but out of a whirlwind. But God doesn't give Job the answers he expected. Instead, God asks Job questions. "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding, who determined its measurements? Who stretched the line upon it? Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place? Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or have you seen the storehouses of the hail? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades or loose the cords of Orion? Can you lead forth the Mazzaroth in their season, or can you guide the bear with its children?" For 4 chapters, God takes Job on a tour of the universe, from the foundations of the earth to the constellations in the sky, from the behavior of wild animals to the mysteries of weather patterns. The message is clear. Job, you're asking questions about the universe from the perspective of someone who doesn't even understand how rain works. The world is far more complex and mysterious than you can comprehend. Job's response is remarkable. He doesn't get angry at God for not answering his questions directly. Instead, he says, "I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes." This isn't Job admitting he was wrong about his innocence. It's Job acknowledging that his understanding of God was too small. He thought he knew who God was, but now he's encountered God directly, and it's changed everything. Sometimes the answer to our questions isn't information. It's a deeper relationship with the one who holds all the answers. God then turns to Job's three friends and says something surprising. "You have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has." Think about that. Job, who questioned God, who demanded answers, who wrestled with faith, he spoke rightly about God. But the friends, who defended God with neat theological formulas, missed the mark. God tells the friends to offer sacrifices and have Job pray for them. And here's the beautiful part. Job, who had every reason to be bitter toward these friends who had blamed him during his darkest hour, prays for them. And when Job prayed for his friends, God restored his fortunes. Not just restored them, doubled them. Job ended up with 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 oxen, and 1,000 donkeys, twice what he had before. God also blessed Job with 10 more children, 7 sons and 3 daughters. The text even mentions that Job's daughters were the most beautiful women in all the land, and unusually for that time, Job gave them inheritances along with their brothers. Job lived another 140 years, long enough to see his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. He died at a ripe old age, full of years. So what's this story really about? It's not a simple morality tale about good things happening to good people. It's much more profound than that. The story of Job tackles one of humanity's oldest questions. Why do bad things happen to good people? And the answer it gives is both humbling and comforting. First, it tells us that there are spiritual realities beyond what we can see. Job's suffering wasn't random. It was part of a larger cosmic story about the nature of faith and love. Second, it shows us that faith isn't a business transaction. Job didn't love God because of what God gave him. He loved God because of who God is. Real faith survives even when the benefits are stripped away. Third, it teaches us that it's okay to question God. Job's honest wrestling with God was more pleasing to God than his friends' shallow platitudes. God can handle our questions, our doubts, our anger. Fourth, it reveals that God's perspective is infinitely larger than ours. We see a small slice of reality. God sees the whole picture. What looks like meaningless suffering to us might be part of a story so vast and complex that we can't even begin to comprehend it. The story of Job doesn't answer every question about suffering, but it does something more important. It shows us that we're not alone in our pain. When everything falls apart, when life doesn't make sense, when well-meaning friends offer simple answers to complex problems, we can remember Job. We can remember that it's possible to hold on to faith even when we can't see the bigger picture. Job's story reminds us that being human means living with mystery, trusting in the darkness, and believing that love and justice exist even when we can't prove it. And sometimes the most profound faith isn't found in having all the answers. It's found in trusting the one who does. Job's story is ultimately about the difference between knowing about God and knowing God. It's about the kind of faith that can say, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." Not because life is easy, but because love is stronger than understanding, and hope is more powerful than despair. In a world that often promises easy answers and quick fixes, the story of Job reminds us that some of life's most important lessons can only be learned through experience, and that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from having our questions answered, but from encountering the one who transcends all our questions. Subscribe to this channel to keep enjoying and learning from these beautiful Bible stories.